Hey guys, Anonymous Fox here, and I know that some of you guys are still using boards that you've bought off the shelves. But you can take your game to the next level with a custom board. And I ain't talking about skateboards or surfboards, I'm talking about keyboards. So, you want to build a keyboard. You need to know a few things before you start building it though, like what size board do you want, what kind of LED options are there, what switches should I use, and what stabilizers and plate do I need. The last but not least, what keycap profile and aesthetic do you want to finish this thing off with? The first thing you need to decide is what size. This will determine what type of PCB you want to purchase. The PCB is the brains and what you'll be plugging all those switches into later. There are several standard sizes and layouts. The most common is the full-size keyboard. This is your standard size format, but for a lot of us gamers, it's a bit big and bulky. I mean, how often do you really use that number pad when you're playing Call of Duty? This might lead you to decide you want another format, and there are several compact layouts that will give you more mouse space. My collection includes a 60% TKL and full-size boards. There are a bunch more as well, and in the description you'll find links to some of the best places online to buy a PCB for any size layout you want. The next thing you need to consider is how much bling you want on this thing. There are really three types of LED types: SMB or surface mounted LEDs that already come on the board, soldered LEDs which you have to attach to the switch manually and be soldered, and underglow LEDs which are also attached to the PCB. The first two shine light up while the underglow LEDs shine light down, which is great for cases with a clear or diffused bottoms. I highly recommend SMB lighting because soldering lights is a pain to do. You're gonna have to solder every single light to the board, and I really don't like soldering. This leads up to one of the most important parts of your PCB: hot swappable or soldered switch sockets. Here we see what a typical hot socket PCB looks like. These allow you to swap out switches without any soldering. If you're building a board now in 2020, hot swaps are the way to go. Once you have found the PCB that's right for you, you then need to figure out what you're going to put it inside of. This brings us to the case. Cases are made out of multiple types of materials. For example, this one right here is made of wood. Other common materials are aluminum and plastic. The type of material will affect the sound it makes to some degree, but for a case, you should go with what looks good to you. Just match your case size to the PCB and you'll be good to go. As always, check the description for the best links. Great, now you have your PCB in your case. Now comes the fun part of keyboard building: the switches. Now there are hundreds and hundreds of switches out there, but they all fall into three small categories, being clicky, which is, you can probably guess why they get their name, tactile, which have a bump in them and make a little bit of a click and a noise, and then we have linear, that don't really do anything. They kind of just go up and down. If you're having trouble nailing down what switches you think are best for you, you can go to websites and order things called switch tester packs that look like this. They send you a little board like this and tons of switches for you to try out. I personally like the KLSP bronze one because they're really clicky. Links are below. Next, we have to talk about plates and stabilizers. Now, this gave me a really big headache and it's very, very important. Stabilizers help keep your longer keys like spacebar and shift from wobbling. They come in plate mounted and PCB mounted types. If you get stabilizers that are PCB mounted, then you need a plate that is made for PCB stabilizers. Your PCB also has to have the extra holes for PCB mounted stabilizers. It's very important to note that PCB stabilizers need to be installed before the plate and switches. If you don't install them beforehand, you will be spending a lot of time disassembling your keyboard. I am a huge fan of plate mounted stabilizers. To me, they feel a bit more solid. Plate mounted stabilizers click into the plate and work pretty much the same way as PCB mounted ones. Again, if you go with the plate mounted stabilizers, you will need to make sure you have a plate for plate mounted stabilizers. I've got a few links in the description to help you out. The last part of the puzzle is keycaps. You can find super cheap keycaps for as little as 15 to 20 bucks, or you could go nuts and pay 200 bucks for a set. They also come in a few different profiles. Profiles are important to the feel and look of your board. Each Rona profile has a different angle and surface area, so you want to purchase a full matching set. The most common is GMK, or Cherry. These caps come on most commercial boards and are very good for both typing and gaming. There are a bunch of other profiles too. Some of the more common ones are DSA, where the profile is flat and there is no angle difference between rows, and SA, which features much deeper spherical scoops and are much taller. The keycaps I am using are MDA profile. These have a much larger surface area on the top and have a light spherical scoop. Another important thing about caps to understand, and why the prices can vary so much, is how they are made. You will commonly see double shot PBT. These are great because if you look at the caps, you'll see the legends on the keys are actually not printed, but molded into the keys. This means they will never wear or rub off with use. Building your new board is pretty fun and easy. First, assemble your stabilizers. In this example, we are using plate mounted stabilizers, but it's the same for PCB mounted ones. Put the small insert into the main housing from the bottom. It will only fit one way, so it's pretty simple. Then, take the metal rod and insert it into the base, passing it through the bottom hole of the insert. Then, just snap the rod down into place. Rinse and repeat for the other side. Clip the stabilizers into the plate or attach them to the PCB depending on the type you are using. The next step is to line up your PCB and plate. Verify which way the switch needs to sit in the plate. Most will be with the pins up, like in this example. But be careful, some of the switches may need to go upside down depending on your layout, so double check. Once you have figured out the orientation of the switches, simply snap them into the plate. Now line up your plate and PCB and gently work the switches into the PCB. Make sure no pins are bent. Start from the corners and work your way around. Once you have worked your way around the outside of the board, start to depress the switches in the middle. You can see as they sit down properly. You won't need much force and the base of the switch will sit down nicely on the PCB. Take this main assembly and line it up with your case. Insert the switches, plate, and PCB into the case and screw it down. That's really all there is to it. The last step is to put the keycaps onto the switches. This is super easy, and as long as you know your layout, it should not take much time at all. Just depress the keycaps onto the stem of the switch and press down. Well, I hope this video inspires you guys to make your own kick-ass board. Now, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them in the comment section below. That's kinda why it's there. And don't forget to subscribe. See ya! Fuck you, Razor.
Yeah.
Just kidding, I love your shit.